Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to share some of the worst sounding records in my collection. Why do this, you might ask? Well, you know, this format's not without its issues, as much as I love it dearly, and I just like to have a good old moan about the industry, because that's what we do. And also, I want to hear from you about some of the worst sounding records in your collection, and this should hopefully help you know what to look out for in terms of what makes a good pressing and what makes something that you should perhaps avoid or even return if you notice an issue in there. But without further ado, these are my picks, and I want you to share yours in the comments below. Number one on my list is a 50th anniversary copy of the Moody Blues, Days of Future Past. Now, this should have been a really nice opportunity to truly celebrate what has become eventually a classic album, because it sort of fell on deaf ears a little bit when it was first released. But alas, no, this has gone horribly wrong. This was remastered, supposedly, but something clearly didn't go right either with the mastering process or the pressing, because this sounds like it's playing through a pillow. It just sounds dull, lifeless, lacking in high end, lacking in true dynamics, transience and energy. It really sounds dull, and it's such a shame because they've done a great job of the colours on the artwork. These are really vibrant. It's a really nice reprint of the original album cover, but it just doesn't live up. It also has a really nice poster that comes with it, really collectible, of course. Released in 2017, this was given to me as a gift by my brother, and he first of all commented when we first put it on, he said, it doesn't sound quite as bright as I remember it from my CD copy. And of course, we were right. It didn't sound quite right at all. I tried taking it into this room where I could listen more critically rather than the living room, which isn't as nice a setup as it is in here. And yes, I was truly disappointed. And I believe I'm not the only person, because if you go on Discogs, you'll see plenty of other comments of people struggling with the same thing. Some people seem relatively happy, but yeah, I would say overall it's a bit of a flop. So eventually I got quite lucky though. Didn't find an original pressing of it, but I just stumbled across this 1970s reissue that sounds pretty good in a charity shop of all places, and it didn't cost me too much money. So this is the one I actually play now. Sounds a lot better. You know, the artwork actually, if you look AB, isn't quite as vibrant on the 70s reissue, but it certainly sounds a heck of a lot better. Actually, this point in the video is a really good opportunity just to talk about and emphasize the power of Discogs comments in checking the quality of reissues like this. So this is the 50th anniversary edition, and I can't stress enough how useful the comments section can be. Of course, if it's a new release and you're trying to buy it on release day, this doesn't help you much, but if you're a few years in or even a few months in, you'll probably find this section really helpful. As one person, as I said and I alluded to earlier, I'd rather listen to the CD. This sounds buried in socks, and I completely 100% agree. Another person here, this is the worst reissue I have. Absolutely terrible. So muddy and compressed. I don't know if it's compression, maybe too much noise reduction, or something's gone on there in the process, but yes, it probably is one of the worst reissues I've personally ever heard or have personally in my collection. Another person here, not very happy. They have this along with the original 1967 UK press, and yeah, they agree with almost everyone else in this comment section that it's a really poor job, essentially. The sound quality wise, the orchestra sounds decent on the remaster. However, once the band comes in, you clearly hear the degradation in audio. The vocals are muddy, the bass is mixed too high, definitely agree, and the drums are nearly non-existent. Yeah, they just sound soft. It's really, really bad. My pressing is fine quality wise, but the bad copies seem to be massively outnumbered good copies. So yeah, overall, most people seem pretty unhappy with this release, and this comment section could be very helpful to someone if they're thinking of buying it, because it's still available to buy out there. Actually, I saw a copy of it going on Amazon. I think the other day they were trying to get £80 for it. You know, just because it's a 50th anniversary edition, was released, you know, a few years back, and now it's probably becoming harder to find. But believe me, check this comment section first before you jump on something like that and waste £60 of your money, because this copy is a disaster. Number two on my list is a 2015 reissue of Norah Jones' Come Away With Me. This just has horrendous sibilance all over the record. Let's see what other people are saying about it on Discogs. Here's the copy in question, 2015, 150 gram. Let's go to the comments. Now, there are some people who are happy with this release, which surprises me because generally an issue like this would be across the entire batch of that record in particular. But generally speaking, the sibilance stuff seems to be a bit of a consensus opinion on this reissue. Here, harsh sibilance on distortion and distortion on side B. Such a shame. Avoid this reissue. The sibilance just turns everything off. If not for this, it can sound absolutely brilliant. The engineers have clearly not listened to the vinyl themselves before mass production. I would agree that overall it sounded okay apart from the sibilance issue, but once you've got something like that and you notice it, you just can't unhear it and it becomes unlistenable, as they're alluding to. A very sibilant pressing. The music is certainly timeless, I absolutely agree, but be prepared for some harsh sibilant distortion. Somebody else here commenting on the harsh T's and S's, which they've said perhaps it's to do with it not being pressed onto vinyl records. I'd say it was more down to how the mastering was handled, but I get their point. In the end, I just reverted back to listening to the CD for that particular album. That was until the 2002 20th anniversary reissue, this particular one here, which is a gatefold copy, so nicer for that already. Still handled at the same mastering house, actually, interestingly enough, at Sterling Sound, which is usually a really good mastering house. And I'm wondering, actually, to a degree, because this copy does sound much better, whether it's something to do with, you know, something reissued in 2015 versus reissued much further into the vinyl revival in 2002. Perhaps there's more financial interest in the industry there to handle things a little bit more sensitively. That's been my observation, is that things reissued in the sort of earlier years of the vinyl revival, 2015 I would put in that category to a degree, versus stuff that's being reissued now. I would say there's been an improvement. That's just my particular observation. Let me know if you would agree or disagree down in the comments. Number 3 on my list is an album from John Frusciante called A Sphere in the Heart of Silence. This is an album that was released as part of a 6-album set, 1 album each month for 6 months. Really raw, honest, quickly done recording, not too much editing, the way I kind of like it, raw and honest. I had the CD copies of these back in 2004, so when the reissues came of the vinyl in 2012, I jumped on these, but I couldn't have been more disappointed. There were so many problems with these releases across the board from the entire series, by the way. This sounds dull, lifeless. It's pressed off centre, which is a massive bugbear of mine. It happens far too often. So you get the wobble and pitch that you hear from the record stylus, just wobbling like this from side to side. Absolutely so distracting and annoying. There were typos on the artwork. The spine's spelt wrong here. And the artwork even just looks washed out and completely doesn't do the originals justice whatsoever. Something went horribly wrong with these remasters. But again, this is 2012, right? And I think a lot of albums in that early 2000s going into the, beginning before the vinyl revival really kind of properly takes off, perhaps after, I would argue, it starts to really take on a world of its own after maybe Jack White's Lazaretto and around that sort of time. That's when things really start to move, and then we just see real sort of parabolic growth and interest until round about now, where it's sort of plateauing a little bit. But I just find the remasters now are becoming a little bit more carefully done, because obviously the industry has more vested interest, I think, in making sure that this is sustained. So this is a reissue now from a couple of years back, and you'll notice straight away that the artwork isn't as washed out. It's much more vibrant, looks much better, and I promise you that has not been sat in the sun. That's been sat properly as it should be, stored in a record cabinet away from any direct sunlight. So, straight away the artwork just looks so much better, but this sounds better as well. It's much closer to the CD. It's got that liveliness. It's got that, it sounds how it should. So it's been handled much better, and that's kind of corrected that issue for me, and I've gone about replacing all of those 2012 reissues from that entire 6-album set. Such a shame that it went wrong in the first place, but again, I think it is something we're starting to see get better, at least from my perspective, as I said. Number 4 is the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Californication. Now, this is an album that is famous audio-wise for all the wrong reasons, because it's one of the worst victims, I would say, of the loudness war, just absolute silly over compression that has led to audible distortion that was noticeable even to non-audiophile types. Even when this was released, I was a much younger man, had no experience in mixing or mastering or anything like that at all, and I could hear the distortion on some of the guitar solos and the fact that the drums were quite fatiguing to listen to. So this is an absolutely dreadful example from the mastering, the loudness war, the peak of the mastering war, I would say, and perhaps the only worse example I can think of is something like Metallica's Death Magnetic, for example, which was even worse. So the mastering from this on this particular vinyl pressing is just that same CD master, that brick wall loudness wall master put on a record. It sounds like trash. It's vertically unlistenable to my ears. I can't listen to the CD anymore, and I can't listen to that record anymore either. However, in 2012, a very good mastering engineer by the name of Bernie Goodman came to the rescue and reissued or recut this album, and this particular copy sounds so much better. This is the only copy of Californication, released commercially at least, that is actually worth listening to. Now, the mixing, there's not really a lot they could have done about that. The mixing on this album also, I think, is a bit questionable in terms of some of the decisions they made, but it at least removes that absolutely silly off the chart mastering bus compression that completely made it unlistenable. So this copy is what you should look for if you're looking for a decent copy of Californication. 2012 reissue, mastered or cut by Bernie Goodman. And I think there might be a reissue of this 2012 copy, perhaps in more recent years, because I actually paid extra for this because it was out of print when I wanted to buy it. But have a look out there. If it's the copy cut by Bernie Goodman, then you're in luck. If it's anything else, I would absolutely avoid. Number 5, and the last one on my list for today, is the White Stripes Elephant 20th anniversary reissue. Absolutely beautiful artwork on this, amazing coloured vinyl that just looks absolutely spectacular. The whole thing feels really, really premium. However, take a look at the imperfections on this record surface. It is absolutely unbelievable. I used to see this issue all the time on records released about 10 to 15 years ago, and it seems to have got better in recent years, where more record pressing plants are opening, and perhaps maybe maintenance and quality control on things like equipment is being looked at more as we sustain this vinyl revival. However, this was one of the worst examples I'd seen in years. Really, really bad. So bad and disappointing on a 20th anniversary reissue like this. I bought another copy eventually and managed to get one that was okay, but that first one that I got was just absolutely unacceptable. If you see things like this, yeah, you absolutely should return it. You should vote with your feet and return it. But it can be difficult. If you see that on a record, it often affects the entire batch. You might get lucky if you buy another one, but generally speaking, you'll probably find that this was some sort of issue with the release agent or the releasing process of the stamper, and it will probably affect the entire batch. Really sad, but hopefully these things are getting fewer and far between. So that was my collection, but now it's over to you. Let me know yours down in the comments below. If you'd like to support this channel further, I'd greatly appreciate it. Check out the description of the video. There are discount codes in there for you to take advantage of. Money off vinyl gear, accessories and more. You get money off, as I say, but there's no extra cost to you. Small commission goes to this channel, helps keep it going, and I really appreciate your support. There's my Patreon page as well, where there's a community over there of other like-minded vinyl lovers, people who collect records just like you and I. And then there's bonus content and other perks each and every month as well. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you in that next one. Cheers.